If you're looking to get started in investing, it's normal to have some fears about the process, because you don't want to blow things up.
I want to be a scientist too and blow things up.
By the end of this video, you'll have one fact showing whether each fear is realistic or not, and one actionable technique for overcoming each of them, so you can enter the investor class not just confidently, but safely, therefore dramatically increasing your chances at becoming a millionaire and beyond.
We'll make you a millionaire while you're sitting here from 1 minute to the next.
I'm Alex Stoermer, I'm a self-made millionaire, and this is the channel for wealth builders. Fear number 10 is fear of regret. Many people fear that they'll make the wrong investment decisions and regret them later. But here's the fact. When we think of losing money, we think of losing it in the units of US dollars, meaning if I invest $5,000 today, how do I know I won't have $4,000 later? But the fact is that the US dollar has lost 99% of its value since its inception, along with every other government-issued currency in history. The technique for eliminating the fear of regret is training your brain not to fear losing US dollars, but instead to fear losing buying power.
Now, on top of everything else, Peggy Braden has given you worldwide buying power.
Therefore, if you don't invest, you are guaranteed to lose buying power. Here's a real example. The price of a new Toyota Camry LE in 1989 was $14,000, but in 2021 it was $24,000. Trucks are even worse. Therefore, in the long term, our regret won't be making the wrong investment decisions, but rather making no investment decisions. Fear number 9 is fear of losing our savings.
And do you think I'm stupid enough to lose my money?
But here's the fact. If we define our savings as our emergency fund money, then this fear is absolutely justified. But then, what is a proven technique to know when it's safe to switch from saving money to investing money? The technique for eliminating this fear starts with a rational definition of what emergency funds are, and I define them as enough money to fully cover levels 1 and 2 on Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid. Level 1 funds are for your food, water, shelter, and clothing, and level 2 are funds for assuring your personal security and basic health. The standard advice is 6 months worth, but I choose more like 9 to 12 months. Simply stated, don't risk money you do need for money you don't need, and you won't fear losing your savings because you won't have put them at risk. Fear number 8 is fear of financial advisors' motives.
Then whoops, we're sorry. We gave you some bad advice.
How do you know the financial advisor you're talking to isn't more concerned about making money from you than making money for you? Now, this fear is quite realistic because a large percentage of the financial industry is not legally required to act in your best interest, and therefore some of them don't.
Name of the game? Move the money from your client's pocket into your pocket.
Right, but if you can make a client's money at the same time, it's advantageous to everyone, correct?
No.
But thankfully, there is a legal designation that identifies what level of trust you can safely put into a financial advisor. This Investment Advisors Act created a specific category of financial advisor who have what's called a fiduciary duty, meaning a legal obligation to act in your best interest. So the technique here, if you're going to use a financial advisor, is that you want one who holds what's called a Series 65 license and not a Series 7 license. The Wolf of Wall Street guys, yep, they're the Series 7 license holders.
And until you pass your Series 7, that is all you're gonna be doing.
But you also need to ask and confirm that they hold only a Series 65 license. This is because you could run into someone who has both license types, but who forgets to tell you that. Now, the second technique for handling fear of financial advisors' motives is not to use a financial advisor at all. And that takes us to fear number 7, fear of complexity.
I've only been trying to get across part of the complexity of our situation down here.
Investing can seem complex due to financial jargon, but it doesn't have to be overly complicated. The fact is that mutual funds or exchange-traded funds are simple to understand, to buy, and to profit from. They're available for real estate, stock market indices, and special interests as well. Technique-wise, well, you can become a millionaire and beyond by consistently buying only mutual funds and ETFs over time. If you'd like a 60-second overview of mutual funds for beginners, I'll put a link to my video on that topic on the screen now and in the description below. Fear number 6 is fear of market crashes. And the fact is that market crashes can and do happen.
The trouble is, George, with this recent market crash, I'm afraid your stocks are no longer sufficient collateral for us to roll the loan over.
But they are part of the market's natural cycles. In fact, there have been 7 market crashes of 20% to 50% since the 1950s. Technique-wise, well, I have a special webinar showing how a janitor, a secretary, and a UPS worker each made millions investing in the stock market despite all these market crashes. They have incredible stories because each of them made millions from investing, and none of them had salaries of more than $50,000 a year. Therefore, in this webinar, I analyzed and tabulated what each of them did so we could learn from their success. If you'd like to hear about that when it releases, consider subscribing to the channel now and I'll notify you. Fear number 5 is losing control.
He's afraid of losing control over his castle.
This could be the loss of control with respect to what you're invested in because you're using a financial advisor, or more simply loss of control over the value of your investments as they move up or down based on the state of the market. The fact is, in both cases, it's true that you're losing some quote-unquote control. In the case of the financial advisor, you're paying them for the purpose of selecting your investments, which means by definition you're giving up some control. If you're investing yourself, the day-to-day value of your investments will move around some. Technique-wise, there is a way to use both a financial advisor and reduce the feeling of loss of control, and that's to read up on the investment philosophy of the advisor you're using or thinking about using, make sure you understand it and agree with it, and then you can fine-tune it with them personally. As an example, I recommend Peter Mallouk's book, The 5 Mistakes Every Investor Makes and How to Avoid Them, for this exact purpose. Fear number 4 is fear of timing the market. What if I buy an investment today and the value immediately declines? Why not just buy at the bottom and sell at the top?
Let's go for the throat. Buy low, sell high.
These ideas are called market timing. The fact is that depending on the particular study, between 90% and 96% of professional money managers cannot beat buying and holding of an S&P 500 index fund. Forbes knows it, MarketWatch knows it, Business Insider knows it, Warren Buffett knows it. It's only the devil on our shoulder that sometimes doesn't know it. If the facts are that trying to time the market doesn't work, then the technique is to adopt a long-term investment mindset and strategy. Instead of trying to time the market, investors who consistently invest over time end up winning. Fear number 3 when it comes to getting started in investing is that we don't know enough to start safely.
I don't know enough.
But the fact is, you don't need to be a financial expert to start investing. There are many resources available to learn about standard investing options. Technique-wise, to get started, I'd recommend subscribing to YouTube channels from people like Dave Ramsey and Graham Stephan, and I'll put links to a few of their relevant videos in the description. After that, you could begin reading books such as Peter's referenced earlier, or this one from Tony Robbins, or taking online courses. Fear number 2 is fear of uncertainty. I know that if I keep my money in a savings account, it will be the same amount tomorrow, but if I invest it, it could be worth less. Well, the fact is that the stock market can be unpredictable in the short term.
Any unpredictable behavior has to be reported.
But the stock market, for one, has historically grown handsomely in the long term. In fact, over any 30-year time period, the US stock market, as represented by the S&P 500, earns an annualized 9 to 11% per year. Real estate in desirable locations is historically strong as well, with cash flows of 6 to 8% of the property value and annualized appreciations in the 3 to 4% range being reasonable benchmarks. So technique-wise then, well, first, let's remember that we care not about the dollar, but rather about buying power. And since the US dollar is always declining in value, we can actually be certain to lose buying power in a savings account, and that will happen almost every year. If we invest using proven methods, we can be almost certain instead to gain buying power, as long as we zoom out enough on our timeline. And the number one fear when it comes to getting started in investing is the fear of losing money.
What the hell have you ever done besides lose money on me?
As much as the devil on our shoulder wants us to believe otherwise, however,
the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Remember that you don't lose money on an investment unless you sell it below your initial purchase price. So the technique here is to buy quality, diversified assets in the first place with a history of long-term growth, and then don't panic sell.
We're almost always a buyer of stocks over time. Never bet against America.
But everything we just learned in this video is useless if you don't take action. Part 2 is on the screen now, and we'll cover exactly what you should do next.